Hey guys, just a warning, I'm glad you tuned in, but I'm going to be spoiling this wide open. And since there's a remake of Final Fantasy VI now available on Steam as the Pixel Remaster, I'm just warning you right now, there's a big, huge spoiler warning this time around. But again, thanks for trying to tune in anyway.
Voice quality as well, but there will also be no music from Final Fantasy VI either. Unfortunately, I'll have to feature music from something else, like Super Mario or something like that. Because, Square Enix is really bad about their music copyright, so...
Final Fantasy was always a series that I was very curious about. I'm not the biggest fan of turn-based JRPGs, so my knowledge of JRPGs are limited at best. Sure, I've played Pokemon and Paper Mario, but those are super simple and strictly for beginners. Hardcore turn-based RPGs are not something I typically enjoy. Still, I've always known about Final Fantasy. I knew the game is called that due to financial issues Square was having at the time, thinking Final Fantasy I was going to be their last game. I know about the merger with their rivals Enix and now being called Square Enix. I know Final Fantasy 2, 3, and 5 didn't release in the West for a very long time. If you're wondering, they ended up changing some of the names of Final Fantasy games here in the States due to that one. Yeah, about that. Look, I know today's game is called Final Fantasy III here in the States. The Super Nintendo Mini even calls it that. But I know it more as Final Fantasy VI. While this is the first Final Fantasy game I was exposed to as a kid, I never really grew up with it. Only saw it in an issue of Nintendo Power that one time. I didn't even remember it was a Final Fantasy game until looking up concept art into my Let's Play. Yeah, I was already well into my Let's Play before I realized that, oh yeah, I've seen this game before. But it is my first exposure to the series. Not the first Final Fantasy game I've played, but yeah. Probably even the reason I played this over all the other Final Fantasy games, if I'm being honest, is because I subconsciously realized that that's the same game. But yeah, I know about Final Fantasy. I just rarely ever played the games. Hell, I never played this one until I had the Super Nintendo Mini. But I've heard plenty about Kefka, Terra, and the adventures these games have. So in an effort to expand my horizons, I started Let's Playing longer games, including JRPGs. And here we are. I played through Final Fantasy VI, I beat the entire game, and now this is my first of possibly many Final Fantasy games that I've actually beat. That being said, this isn't my first time playing Final Fantasy. Like I said earlier, I played Final Fantasy X and the Dirge of Cerberus, as well as Final Fantasy IV a bit. I just never really beat them. And honestly, by the time this review goes up, the far more accessible Pixel Remaster version is definitely out. I'd recommend that over the SNES original. I mean, they probably fixed certain bugs and made the game more approachable than this version. I had a hard time figuring things out for sure in this game. Yeah, you may have watched some of my Let's Play and thought, oh, well, this is going to be a negative review. Well, shockingly no. This is actually going to be a positive review. Once I figured things out, this ended up being a very positive experience, so there's that. With that all out of the way, I'm here to say, we have a clown, and we're taking him down. Let's do it. Let's take on Kefka! And thus the story begins. This story actually starts out with 3 soldiers in mech suits invading a town. They slay some monsters and enter a mine to fight a big-ass snail. After slaying the snail, a monster in ice called an Esper frees the one female from their group and kills the normal-looking soldiers in the group. The girl, named Terra, was brainwashed by the Empire and is now falling down a hole. Oh, okay. A nearby thief named Locke comes to her rescue, and off they go. Meeting up with a nearby king named Edgar in a town called Figaro, Terra is then told that the Empire that brainwashed her are a bunch of assholes. Speaking of which, Kefka, a military leader of the Empire, shows up, and certain that Terra's in the castle, Figaro, lights the place on fire. No ice spells with this guy, I guess. The castle, being technologically advanced, however, buries itself to smite the fire, and the trio take off on a bunch of big-ass birds called chocobos to South Figaro. After visiting the city, the trio head through the mountains and find King Edgar's long-lost twin brother, Sabin. He is a martial artist. Anyway, he joins up with the team, and they all find the leader of the rebellion against the evil Empire. However, the Empire is quick on the heels of our heroes. Locke was sent by himself to stall the Empire at South Figaro, while the others leave off on a raft and fight Ultros, a purple octopus monster. Sabin is thrown off the raft when Ultros gets a little too fresh with Terra. This is where the story splits into 3 different choices. Terra, Edgar, and Bannon, the leader of the rebellion, have a short walk to the village nearby where Terra first met the Emperor. Nice. Locke meets back up with the story after stalling the Empire long enough, and basically is looking to escape a blockade around South Figaro. While doing so, Locke finds a young girl by the name of Celeste in a prison cell. Celeste, like Terra, can do magic. Turns out, like Kefka, she was created to be the leader of the Empire. Locke jailbreaks her, and off they go, stopping to destroy a tank along the way. Last, we meet up with Sabin. Oh boy, Sabin! He goes on an adventure. Washed up on the beach of another country, Sabin hires a ninja named Shadow, or didn't, Shadow is entirely optional at this point, and finds an Empire camp. This camp is basically sitting outside a place called Castle Doma. Kefka is there wanting to poison the entire place, but General Leo, another leader in the Empire, has honor. However, General Leo is mysteriously called away, and Kefka tries to poison Doma's water supply, while Sabin tries stopping him. Despite Sabin's intervention, Kefka poisons the entire water supply. This is where we end up meeting Cyan, a samurai working for the King of Doma. He notices something off with the water and finds the king. By the time he does, however, everyone is dying, and the king, Cyan's best friend, dies in Cyan's arms. Cyan then suddenly remembers that he has a family and has to go and find his wife and child, who are already dead. Soon the entire castle of Doma is dead and gone, excluding Cyan. Cyan goes a little crazy with rage and storms the enemy camp, slaughtering a bunch of mech suits and soldiers until Sabin comes in and saves Cyan before, well, Cyan can tire out. The group heads south into the woods to suplex a train, but find out it's a ghost train. The train gives up on taking the group, but when the train does stop, oh jeez. The train drops the group off only to pick up the souls from the dead from Doma, leaving a tearful goodbye from Cyan's family. Wow. Jeez Louise. After Shadow leaving and jumping into a waterfall, the team end up in another country. Here they meet Gao, a wild child. After recruiting him with some meat, they find his treasure. This treasure is a diving helmet fitting 3 people somehow, allowing the group to get off the country, and after a dock or two, they regroup with everyone else. After some back and forth, Cyan nearly murdering Celeste and Terra, the group head out to save the Esper from the Empire. The group fight Kefka, defeating him, and have Terra talk to the Esper, only for her to transform and yeet the hell out of the plot. The group decide to go find Terra, and this is where we run into some optional backstory for certain characters. Is Edgar and Sabin in your party? Well, if they are, you can visit Castle Figaro and learn some things about their past. You can also take Locke and find out he's a total creeper! Ha ha ha! Anyone ever think of Bond from Seven Deadly Sins when looking into Locke? White hair, thief, has the corpse of his dead girlfriend just lying around. He's trying to revive her. Yeah, that sounds like Bond. Anyway, after rehiring Shadow again, the group eventually invade a criminal town and eventually find Terra, who's in a magical coma. The old man watching over her tells the group they should find a particular Esper in the Empire's factory. Only way to get into enemy territory, though, is through airship. In the nearby town, there is a gambler by the name of Setzer who owns an airship and who wants to sweep away his love, an opera singer who, luck would have it, looks just like Celeste. Celeste sings, the team beats Ultros again, and Setzer kidnaps Celeste. Then Celeste lets the group onto the ship, and Setzer decides that he loves Celeste even more than his opera singer, and also loses a coin flip. He flies them to the factory, and the group infiltrate the place and find all sorts of Espers who change into Magicite to add their power to the heroes. Now the heroes gotta flee an angry Kefka. Celeste sacrifices herself after the group meet her old caretaker, Sid, and the group get away for the time being, managing to bring all the Espers with them. One of the Espers happens to be Terra's father, and he explains what happens in Terra's past. Terra is half human, half Esper, and the Empire invaded the Esper home and captured Terra and her father, killing Terra's human mother. Terra wakes up accepting herself now and joins back up with the crew, eager to talk to more Espers in their homeland. The group bust into the dungeon and find a big-ass gate to the Esper world, but in opening the gate, the Espers fly out and attack a lot of people. The Empire issues a truce right away. The leader of the Empire, Gestal, talks to their group negotiating Kefka in prison and a possible truce with the freed Espers. The group agrees and takes off with General Leo, the honorable sort person. Leo talks to Terra about love not always being romantic and, talks about things happening, basically apologizing. Oh, Shadow's here too. He works for the Empire now. Huh. Anyway, they find a village and locals don't want to talk to any of our heroes until a fire happens and the group save a young girl by the name of Realm. Now people suddenly want to talk. Strago, the adopted grandfather of Realm, joins the crew and helps them find the cave where the Espers are held up in. After a battle with Ultros and Realm joins the group, and the Espers are found. However, Kefka shows up, kills all the Espers, turning them into Magicite, and even murders General Leo. Damn. The team grieve while Kefka and Gestalt bring some sort of flying island around. The island in question has the Warring Triads on it. Oh boy, here we go. The Warring Triads are powerful deity-like beings who are fighting and stalemated so damn hard they all turn to stone. Oops. Because of this magic and the Espers came to being in the world. The Empire's main goal is to use the Warring Triads to basically take over all of magic. The team wipe out an entire airship fleet and Ultros again just to get to the island, finding an injured and betrayed Shadow. The team continue on to the island and find the Triad. Gestalt tries convincing Celeste to join them. However, she stabs Kefka instead. Kefka gets angry and starts using his magic power to move the Triad out of alignment. Gestalt tries reeling Kefka in, but Kefka basically pushes him off the island, killing him. Shadow tries stalling the Triad to give the team time to escape. Shadow dies tragically unless you decide to wait for him, and the team try to escape, but the airship is blown apart and the team is lost. Yep, Kefka takes over the world. The villain won. 1 year later, Celeste wakes up on an island with Sid. After taking care of him, or having him die on her, and trying to commit suicide, eventually Celeste leaves the island. She finds Edgar and Setzer and gains a new airship, and the world just opens up for you from there. You get to choose who you find and who you don't. Sabin is helping with a burning building, Gao is in the wilds again, Terra adopted an entire town of children, Cyan has taken over love letter duty for a dead boyfriend. Realm is helping deal with a demonic painting, Strago went nuts and joined a cult, Shadow is saved from a behemoth and then found in a fighting tournament, Locke is reviving his dead girlfriend, and while some of these guys need help, they're all optional. This is probably the best and the worst thing about the game's writing. Seeing Cyan finally get over his loved ones from a dream world while fighting a demon for him, seeing dreams that Shadow has, explaining his past, all optional. You pick the story from here on out, and it's a shame too. Terra's story, for example, is completely optional at this point as she learns the meaning of love. Really, really beautiful writing. After you collect whatever characters you want and finishing the stories you want, you storm Kefka's big-ass tower, which seems like it's made from just a lot of junk lying around nearby. After a few boss fights, the Warring Triads are slain and Kefka is dead. The gang escapes in an amusing team-up fashion. As the gang leaves, Terra is told by her father that while magic is fading, Terra can stay in this world if she truly loves something. And in the end, she turns human because she loves her kids. Everyone rebuilds while peace begins to return. What a lovely ending. The writing in this game is fantastic overall, but there are a few minor flaws. Character writing is important, but since almost everything in the final area is optional, the other characters often don't interact with each other. Not like the game has unique dialogue depending on which character you bring to the party. It's a bit of a shame, actually. Also, some closures are super optional. What does super optional mean? It means that after recruiting somebody like Cyan again, you still have another side quest to do before seeing his story come to a close. This can be seen as a sour spot in the writing, and it is. Also, some of the characters don't even come close to being as important as others. Their arcs are great, though, overall. And while there are some flaws, overall, there is a lot of writing in this game. I don't think these flaws are too awfully bad in the grand scheme of things. However, almost all of these flaws are in the second half of the game, making that part of the game, the World of Ruin, a bit of a slog if these issues bug you. So now that we've cleared the writing of this freaking game, let's talk about the music. First thing to learn, Final Fantasy has some fantastic music tracks. I listen to tracks in Final Fantasy even if I've never played the games, and this game is clearly no exception. Honestly, I bought a few Pixel remasters just for access to the soundtracks alone. They are that damn good. Not that the games aren't worth it in the end. Still, I love how serene Terra's theme is when you're looking for her in the overworld. The Phantom Forest is a great track to make the player unnerd while still not being overly spooky. And of course, I can't get away with talking about, the music of Final Fantasy without bringing up Dancing Mad, the track playing when you fight Kefka for the final time. Such foreboding and epic music for a final encounter. Decisive Battle is a fantastic boss track in its own right, and the regular battle theme is fantastic as well, although it doesn't necessarily top the battle theme of Final Fantasy IV for me. Yeah, the second battle theme for that game, oh my gosh. As for the looks of this game, I love the opening cutscene, the battle animations, the sprite work, all of it. Being a later re-release on the Super Nintendo, this game looks amazing. Still, it looks better than Final Fantasy IV, and I hear Final Fantasy V, which is impressive. Some of the characters have unique animations, which is even also more impressive, considering, all these characters that you get to play as. Meanwhile, the monsters look amazing as well. This isn't the first time designing monsters, but Tetsuya Nomura certainly works wonders with sprites and the art around this game. He also helped design Shadow and Setzer. Odd one of those hasn't cropped up in Kingdom Hearts as a character. He is the creator of Kingdom Hearts, in case you were wondering. Kefka's final form is also just amazing. The behemoth looks great in the game. Ultros looks insane despite how goofy his personality is. But Ultima Weapon boss fight, oh my gosh, this thing is just such peak monster design. Of course, that's just my opinion, but he looks really imposing overall. Terra's dad, as well as some of the other espers and summonings, look fantastic too. Man, I can't get over how good this game really looks. And I played the damn Super Nintendo version. Look, all the main characters look great, their overall animations look fantastic, and they look even better in the Pixel remaster too. Overall, Final Fantasy VI is charming as all hell. Now, when it comes to the gameplay, this game has a ton of options for you to work with. Each character has unique skills and fighting styles, making them all interesting to try out. Terra is a magic user who can transform into an Esper, boosting her power. Celeste can absorb magic to heal herself as long as she has a sword. Shadow throws things like weapons and items at foes. Edgar has technology, doing a lot of physical damage. And Sabin uses fighting game combos to do powerful moves. Gao and Strago learn moves from their enemies. Realm can paint enemies using their moves. Locke can steal items from said enemies. Cyan has sword combos he charges up. Setzer gambles, doing small healing or a powerful attack and hit all enemies. Mog dances, using spells from different areas. Umaro beats on foes, and Gogo mimics other characters. Whew! Most of this is pointless, however. Once you start getting Magicite in the game, most of these abilities don't amount to anything, especially if you don't want to use them. Take Gao or Mog, for example. Once you use their special attacks, they are uncontrollable for the rest of the match. They may be helpful, or not. Also, learning the special spells for Gao and Strago from enemies? I found magic to be easier to teach, making them, at best, backup mages with Magicite. See, you give the character a piece of Magicite. They can now summon an Esper attached to it, but they can also, given time, learn spells from said Espers. You can learn some incredibly powerful spells, and while not everyone has magical energy tanks that Terra, Celeste, or even Realm have, anyone can be a mage. Everyone, excluding the two secret characters Umaro and Gogo, yeah, they can't be mages. Given, if time, Gogo could literally copy a powerful spell, shooting out a slightly less powerful Fire 3 or even Ultima. Meanwhile, Umaro is just kind of there. You give him some armor and relics, but he just attacks whenever he wants to, doing massive physical damage. Some people find Umaro pretty useless, while others have found use for him. Hell, I had him so bulked up he was hitting absurdly hard. Even killed Kefka for me. Overall, magic can break the game, but the game can be played and beaten with unique abilities, limiting magic if need be. Like I said, you have a ton of options. Either way, the game can be played however you choose. If you don't have magic, you can deal with most things regardless outside of a pesky enemy type or two. And there are definitely a few enemy types that gave me hell. Particularly ninja star throwing like monsters in Kefka's tower. Everything else I found manageable at the very least. Sure, Ultima Weapon was tough, but I felt he was still a fair boss fight. Zozo was tough and aggressive, but not the worst thing ever. Nothing was too terrible with a proper setup. Overall, I liked the dungeons and how unique they were due to story integration. Sometimes random encounters can be slightly aggressive, but there were always ways around that. I never found out how to do this until the end of the game, but you have warp stones if a fight is too tough, or just learn the spell warp. You can warp out of a dungeon as well if you need to, go grind more somewhere else. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty to deal with outside of combat. Locke trying to get out of South Figaro was confusing, finding Edgar in the World of Ruin, and figuring out where Terra went before finding Zozo was a tad bit rough. Don't get me wrong, I was talking to NPCs, but these things still ended up confusing overall. Not impossible to figure out, just slightly confusing. Overall, with some awesome but tough boss encounters, and dungeons that look and feel unique with different enemy types keeping you on your toes, these levels are mostly great though. Alright, I brought them up a time or two, so let's talk about the optional characters. Mog, Umaro, and Gogo are the ones that are entirely optional. Mog you can get in the World of Light. He's one of the Moogles who helped Terra and Locke at the start of the game. After getting Mog in the World of Ruin, you can go to an optional dungeon and fight Umaro as a boss encounter. If Mog is in the party when you defeat Umaro, Umaro will end up joining up with the team. Meanwhile, Gogo, you have to get eaten by a specific enemy to find him in a mini dungeon. It's kind of weird. I used a guide to find Gogo because outside of pure accident, how else are you going to find him? Getting eaten isn't talked about by a lot of people in Final Fantasy VI. Outside of that, all the characters are optional in the World of Ruin outside of Celeste, Setzer, and Edgar. Also in the World of Ruin are powerful late-game spells and Magicite. Ragnarok is in Narshi. If you have Locke, you can find someone in the town and he gives you the Magicite, which can teach you Ultima, a powerful spell. Or he can turn it into a powerful sword, which you can upgrade in an arena fight. You can get Shadow here too after saving him. You'll also get Holy Magic, or this version Pearl Magic, by returning to Castle Doma and getting Magicite there. You can even slay 8 powerful dragons and get access to Meteor, a powerful spell that might just be more dangerous than Ultima. The nice thing about Ultima and Meteorite also is that they hit every enemy on the field, not just one, making them very devastating. They also ignore most magical defenses and whatnot, so that's pretty cool too. There are also a ton of special dungeons I didn't even hit on. And if you have the Game Boy Advance version, there's even more special dungeons and boss fights. Look, there is a ton to do in this game. I didn't get to all of it. If you like the main adventure, there's plenty to keep you coming back. Or hell, plenty of side quests that overall can help with your fight with Kefka. Speaking of overall, Final Fantasy VI is a tiny bit flawed in most of my categories here, but overall I do think it's a masterpiece. I'm no JRPG expert though. I think the game is fantastic, amazing, and even incredible. Yes, the open-ended nature of the game leads to flaws in gameplay and writing. I think though that most will go back to experience these stories in the writing, and will at the very least experiment with what abilities they like with each character. The game is huge and everything is open-ended, so go nuts. Play how you want. With that, I think I've gushed about this game long enough. If you like JRPGs, play this game. It's rough if it's your first JRPG, however, but with some experience you can get through it. I did, and I got frustrated a lot in my original run. I kept giving it a chance, however, and so should you. 10 out of 10. If you liked the video, like, subscribe, comment, hit the bell for live notifications, and please check out some of my other reviews. Until next time, my minions, take care. And the next Final Fantasy game I hit up, which it's going to be a while, will probably be Final Fantasy VII, but I might visit Kingdom Hearts before that ever happens. Again, all of these will be Let's Plays first, however, so check out my Let's Play side of things too. Till then, take care. Bye-bye. Also, sorry I'm kind of under the weather if my voice sounds a little raspy. The seasons are changing. My voice doesn't like that. So, sorry about that. Bye-bye.